and I'm also a member of the African American Advisory Board. But my experience goes back with Dr. Martin Luther King when I marched with him, so I'm probably one of the oldest ones in the room. And a lot of the things that I'm seeing now are the things that we fought for then, the racism and to be included. We didn't have the riots, but Dr. King did say that the riots are the voice of the unheard. We talk about listening. We don't listen. We don't listen to the black voices. But we definitely need to listen to the young people who are on the street fighting for justice. That was me during Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement. The young people fighting. So why are they fighting for the same things now? The legislations haven't changed. Recently, we had elections. Commonwealth attorneys were hired that was fighting for criminal justice reform. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of law enforcement officers fighting against that. Why isn't it that they want the criminal justice system to be reformed? Governor, thank you for signing the decriminalization of marijuana bill, because so many of our students and our young black men and women were getting caught up in the criminal justice system because of marijuana, something that wasn't killing them. But here was another expense that they could not afford. We have to change our laws. When the rioting is over, when the smoke has cleared, we cannot go back to business as usual. We have to make our legislators accountable. We have to change the books. We have to be there so the next generation will not go through the same thing that we're having to go through now or that we went through 50 years ago. So I'm asking you to stand up. To my white sisters and brothers, stand with us, not behind us. Walk with us. Let your voice be the true voice. You can help make a difference. To my black brothers and sisters, let your voice be heard through your vote. We have no obligation to someone to stay in a position the rest of their lives. If they don't support the issues that you want, vote them out. We have elections coming out. I would like to see as many of you vote as you are marching. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Governor, for having me. As he said earlier, my name is Naquel Perry Jr., and I'm a rising senior at Albemarle High School located in Charlottesville, Virginia. I am a part of a student equity group called SEAT, which stands for Student Equity Advisory Team, and we pride ourselves on being anti-racist. One thing that I want to say is, to all the kids that are watching, we are the future. Our voice needs to be heard, and we need to come together now more than ever. We need everyone, any race, we need everyone to make this thing bigger and to help us. To all my kids and fellow classmates who are going to be eligible to vote, please use your right and vote and let your voices be heard. To all the protesters out there, please be safe, and one day I have faith that this nation will become better. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, for giving us this opportunity to share. I want to just, let you guys know that black people are hurting, and we're not going to be able to sweep this up under the carpet or go along as business as usual. For decades, centuries, 400 years, black people have been treated as less than, unequal, and to continue to. The Washington Post has a database that says since January 1st, 2015, over 1,000 black men have been killed, black people have been killed by police. That's a scary statistic, and we can roll the names off. It's not just George Floyd. When we see him, we see the case before that, and we think about all the things that we're struggling with. I've got a 19-year-old male at home and two African-American young daughters, and it makes me sad that I've got to go through a long lineage of what I need to tell them to do while they're out. You know, put your driver's license in the side, put your registration down on the side, try not to move much. I'm telling my son that all the while I have to do this my own self, and my daughters and my wife and my parents, and it gets old. And so when you see the frustration, there's a text in the 19th chapter of Luke. I'm a Baptist preacher, so forgive me. Verses 41 and 42, it talks about Jesus weeping, that Jesus saw the city and was frustrated and began to show emotion. This is where we are right now. And this is our time to deal with our feelings about what is going on in the world. My hope is for those who don't understand, and try to have some empathy. Help us do something about it. You know, the text says Jesus wept, but he also acted, and that's my challenge. That's my hope. You know, I see those who are outside right now, who are protesting. My hope is that you join in and make some things happen. You know, I'm not just a pastor, but I also am an elected official. And on one hand, I'm frustrated and I'm tired and I'm sad and I'm angry. But I also realize that I've got a responsibility, as do all of us. And so today, as I'm sitting behind my computer, frustrated, angry, tired, mad, I'm also typing an email to my colleagues, and I'm saying, I'm asking for us to have a community review board. I'm asking for us to rename any building that has a Confederate name to it. I'm asking for us to look at all our policies that will empower police to kill, murder people. So this is my challenge. Be angry. Make your anger move to righteous indignation. And then let's take advantage of this moment that we have, and let's do something. Let's not be here again. All right, let's stop empowering people to murder black people. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Bibbs. I'm representing the Urban League of Hampton Roads. I'm the chair there. And I want to take a few moments just to talk about the unrest that's been in our nation. I think if we're all honest, this hurts us all, even to those who have no clue of what's going on. And there are people, believe it or not, today that have no clue still of what's going on. But they're hurting because they see the nation in unrest. One, I want to say thank you to the governor for having this conference today. Governor, thank you. Thank you, Governor, for the African Advisory Council that you have in place. Thank you. And thank you for hiring the Chief Diversity Officer and Dr. Janice Underwood. That is a beginning. reform. We need police to have dash cams, body cams on at all times. We need laws revised in ways that look at everyone. We also need to address some of those things that we deem socially acceptable with regards to things that are said, such as there's only one race, the human race, such as many things along those lines that we hear and we say, and we kind of excuse behaviors. We have to challenge those behaviors when we hear them. Stop being afraid to be the one in the room to challenge a behavior, to challenge a statement that you know is not right. If you feel it in your gut that it's not right, challenge that statement. It's not a problem. If we don't do that, this nation will never advance. We have to stop right where we are today and say, it's going to be better, starting today, starting with me. I have a friend who is a staunch conservative from childhood. She wrote me a message and she said, for the first time, her son is 21 years old in a military academy, 6'1", 195 pounds, strapping young buck. For the first time, she said, when he was going out the other day, she had to tell him to be careful. And when the door shut, she said she felt the pit in her stomach. She said it was something she never felt before. And she said that the first person she thought of was me. I don't know why, but she thought of me to reach out to me and say that she was sorry for some of the comments that she's made. And she understood for the first time that pit in her gut that African-American parents feel when their child walks out. She said she didn't have to have the full talk, but she had to have a talk for the first time. That's the beginning. Those are the moments that we're talking about. Challenge those moments. Make certain that what you're doing is for a better Virginia, a better community that you live in, and a better nation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Much of what you've heard today is necessary to hear and to be said, and I won't repeat the sentiments. I will say, though, thank you to Governor Northam for creating a vehicle that I can be directly involved in, where I can sit at the table and I can translate the sentiments that are playing out on the streets all across this country into the action that's necessary. The NAACP president at the national level has said very succinctly, and it sums it up for me, we are done dying. I'm a little bit done talking. I want to act, and I appreciate having the opportunity to do that as chair of the Commission to Examine Racial Inequity in Virginia Law, and we're ready to get started.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Governor Northam. Thank you all for being here for the conversation. Governor Northam, your leadership and support are even more important now as we navigate the complex and complicated state of our country and our Commonwealth, and determine how Virginia can lead the charge. All week, many of us have been in Zoom meetings or watching the protests, and we've been on the brink of breaking down, and we're angry. I've wondered why the murder of George Floyd has been especially heartbreaking, and I realize that it's because we all witnessed, in effect, a 21st century version of a lynching. But similar to Eric Garner, I believe that we have all been so viscerally impacted because we all can't breathe. We're angry, but in the words of Cynthia Hudson, we're ready to act. So yes, this is painful for all of us, and it's painful for the Black community in particular because of our historical connection to lynching and as victims of violence at the hands of white people. And despite all of us, like so many others, I feel the world around us is simply waiting on the next news cycle to change. and we fear a return to ignoring white supremacy in plain sight. I weep and intercede on behalf of the Floyd family, and on behalf of your family and my family, and on behalf of every life that does not yet matter. I'm exhausted by being Black in America. I fear for my husband, who is just as tall and possibly as threatening to law enforcement as George Floyd was. I fear for my Black daughters and my father and my nephew and my nieces. Despite this very real fear and the overwhelming pain and exhaustion, I commit to standing with Governor Northam and everyone in this room and everyone behind us to dismantle institutionalized racism in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is time to act. Are you with me? If so, let's work together and answer Dr. King's question in his last book, where do we go from here, chaos or community? It is in that spirit of Dr. King's last grand expression of his vision for us. We will share in the coming weeks how we believe we can be more proactive in how we address race and race relations in our state. COVID-19 was an unexpected threat that forced us to quickly rally our best leaders from diverse backgrounds. But COVID-19 is not the only institutional virus or the biggest public health crisis that we've seen in our nation. Institutional racism is. I am proud of the Health Equity Task Force and the Health Equity Working Group, but I'm also so proud of this administration and so many others who aren't even up here with us today, but who are doing the work. Just like COVID-19, systemic racism and race relations will also require a comprehensive team of diverse leaders willing to have courageous and brave conversations to evoke change. This is change that will be painful for some, but necessary to advance visible equity and inclusion. But I know we can do it because we've done it before. In one short year, we have already gotten the position of Chief Diversity Officer codified so that it is now a permanent position for every future governor's cabinet leadership. We have begun to frame the One Virginia Plan, a strategic plan for increasing diversity and inclusive excellence, and have engaged with more than 25,000 residents, faith leaders, and stakeholders to get input on the COVID-19 response. And during the 2020 General Assembly session, we passed the most historic equity legislation in the history of any administration in Virginia. These are all wins we can be proud about, but we know there is so much more work to do. None of us can do this by ourselves, but if you want to know what you can do right now, what can you do to help? Let's start by acknowledging that all of us are at different levels of understanding these racial dynamics, and especially for our youngest residents, our children. This may be the first time they are seeing such and experiencing such painful things. So helping our children, our friends and neighbors requires a commitment to leaning, and I mean leaning, into our discomfort and privilege. These conversations will create emotions of confusion and defensiveness and guilt and anger and fear, but these are normal and necessary human responses. I ask you to listen to one another. We must treat each other with respect and listen to each other. Listen to your friend, listen to your coworker. Listen to that relative or neighbor who needs to share their experiences or their pain because we are in so much pain. Secondly, learn how to be a genuine ally, not a fake ally. How can you be a genuine ally in this work and help your friends and coworkers and relatives and loved ones and neighbors to avoid stereotyping and criminalizing and undermining people of color? And that goes for all of us. All of you watching, all of us in this room, it goes for all of us. And finally, you can start by educating yourself about the racial dynamics that we are all experiencing by having conversations, but also by reading books and watching films about anti-racism to gain a new knowledge, a new language, a new confidence, to be able to talk about it in your sphere of influence. On my website, I have resources and information where you can start to learn more about appropriate language and best practices for advancing equity. This is what I know for sure. Your voice is essential to our success. I need you to be involved in this work ahead. We are all in this together, step by step and day by day. We will rebuild our Commonwealth and emerge as a national exemplar for inclusive excellence and racial equity. I believe it in my heart, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Underwood, and thanks to all of you for sharing your powerful words this afternoon. I'll be glad to take a couple questions.
Governor, as you know, I've been an independent journalist for 31 years. We broadcast in all of Central Virginia, all of Hampton Roads, and I would like someone from this esteemed group to speak to my colleagues and their news directors who are sitting somewhere watching this right now and saying, well, all this will pass and we'll be back to normal, and these stories won't be told. I promise you there's a news director that says this will all blow over. So if someone could speak to the press, I would appreciate it. Then on sidebar, Governor, I was a few minutes late coming in because the guy stopped me right on Gray Street. And as protesters were marching by, you could hear them. He pulled me to the side. I said, man, I'm gonna be late. He said, come in. He said, tell the governor that I hope he hears us young people.
Yes.
Because we will not stop. And we don't believe in all this peace stuff. I hope he hears us.
I think that it was well stated by our senior in high school, that they are our future. And this is all about their future and then their children and grandchildren. And so I just admire you for being here. Number one, your courage to stand up here and make that clear that we are here to listen to the young people. Delegate McQuinn, do you want to address the, maybe kind of, I will. Maybe just what the message is, that what we plan to do, at least as legislators in this branch. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. We were, matter of fact, I was on the telephone last night with my colleagues talking about going actually across the state of Virginia. Like when we last year we did Safe Virginia Initiative, but we want to do also looking at doing a Safe Virginia, not Safe Virginia, but a Virginia equity sort of, I guess, initiative where we'll go around Virginia having opportunities to have the discussions with the community. Now, COVID-19, I'm not sure how much we are going to do in terms of actually being in a place. Certainly virtual means is available for us. And then we have legislation that we are working on, again, that was passed. You know, I think that the importance of all of us understanding the institution of slavery, the Black Code, Jim Crow, and massive resistance is going to be essential to us moving forward. And many generations are here now who don't understand that. And they may have been raising the questions, why are they still talking about that old stuff? But the reality is that what happened then has a direct correlation to what is happening now. And so we need to understand our history, both Black and white, Asian, all Americans, through history books, through social studies, you name it. It needs to be implemented so that there are faces of those who have made extraordinary contributions to Virginia and to this country. And so there are many things that we're going to be able to do, and I think at the appropriate time, we need to begin to really, truly publicize this. In terms of the media, and I want to say some of them, I've looked at several, and they have been on this. And so I think this whole discussion is here to stay. It is too many of us who are here at the table, young and those more mature, who have worked very hard trying to help get us to a place. and I've won. I started when I was 11 years old. I've been for 25 years trying to help address the issue of systemic racism. But I think we're at a place in this country now that we have declared no longer will we sit idly by and allow things that have happened in so many facets of our society. We are not going anywhere, and we want to get to a place where all of us can breathe. And the only way we can do that is to sit down at the table and get these things moved forward. Thank you.
Governor, these protests started at least in Richmond on Friday, so I'm wondering why wait until today to address them? And also, when you spoke about steps moving forward, I didn't hear any specific criminal justice reforms, so I was wondering what specific changes you think need to be made in Virginia.
Yeah, well, I think your first part of your question was the protest started on Friday. We have been involved, Kate. I have been working closely with our mayor, who was intending to be here this afternoon but had another commitment, as you probably are well aware of. We've been on the phone daily. We have been working with our leaders, really asking the question, why? Why are these happening? And then trying to recognize, all of us together, that this is real pain that people are experiencing. And working with law enforcement. As you know, we've also been working with our National Guard. We want to do everything that we can to allow people to express their opinions, to protest peacefully, but we also have to keep the peace. And we have done this in a stepwise fashion, as you have seen, and we will continue to do that. But I think the more important message, and you talked about criminal justice reform and what we're doing moving forward. I listed a number of things that we have worked on. We will continue to be on a listening tour. We will learn, and we will bring that back to make policy. I think you've heard a lot of our speakers this afternoon say that it's time to turn what we are listening to into action. And that's what I'm committed to doing. And I cannot speak for the entire legislature, but I know there are a number of them that are ready to come back here. We're going to come back here probably in August for a special session to deal with the budget. I am very confident that even between now and then, there will be pieces of legislation that are introduced. Some of them may be regarding criminal justice reform. There may be others as well, but we'll continue to listen and we'll take that into action and we'll move forward as a Commonwealth. Yes.
May I just respond?
Absolutely.
One second. In the next 3 weeks, you will have a brand-new criminal justice commission. Many of the criminal justice issues that have been coming forth, back and forth to the General Assembly year after year, those things will be addressed. And I can promise you there will be a difference in terms of legislation and implementation of those things that we know can get passed through the General Assembly as we move to the next place.
Just wanted to step in. There were a couple questions, but in particular with the one, why now, when the riots started on Friday here in Richmond. My wife and I sit and ask ourselves that question as well. But we also have found out that the governor has been talking to a lot of the legislators behind the scene. One thing I will say, and some leaders in communities, but one thing I will say is it's also time to update a Rolodex of the people that they speak to, because some of the people they're speaking to, who we love and we cherish, are not the people who are on the streets. So we need to make certain that when we're speaking to community leaders, it's not the tried and true traditional leaders. It's some of the younger leaders now who are out there. It's time to hand the baton over to a newer generation who's out there and who's making a difference in this, and this will not go away. So for the news anchor or media director, the news director, this is a very different type of noise. And if it's not addressed, it will become more than noise. So thank you.
House conference with the governors on Monday. I know I've read the transcript. Some of the president's rhetoric has been criticized by other governors. Can you talk about some of the things he said, like clamping down on protesters and using military force to stamp them out? What would be your response to that?
Mel, the question was about the conversation with the president, and we were part of that conversation, and the message, regrettably, was not one of healing. It was not one of unity. It was one of divisiveness. And I regret that coming from the leader of the most powerful country in the world. There, you know, as a follow-up, Mel, as you know, part of the discussion was a request for our National Guard to go to Washington, D.C. I chose not to send our National Guard to Washington, D.C. For several reasons. Number one, it was not requested by the mayor of Washington, D.C. We have numerous scheduled protests and challenges right here in Virginia, and I thought it was in Virginia's best interest to keep our National Guard here. And finally, I am not going to send our men and women in uniform of a very proud National Guard to Washington for a photo op.
Governor, I know Delegate McQuinn talked about the need for peaceful protest, but what is your message to those who are choosing not to protest peacefully and who are destroying the city?
Well, I think you already heard some of that message, and I think from my perspective, people are angry. They're mad, and I guess an analogy, if it's okay, that I would use as a physician who has been with families when they've lost their children. A lot of times, well-intended folks will come up and say, "I understand what you're going through. I feel your pain." Well, no, you don't, because you've never walked in their shoes. You've never experienced what they're experiencing. And so perhaps I'm not the best one to talk about the pain that people are feeling, but I think you've heard from these testimonials and powerful words this afternoon. And so I think we need to step back from the big picture, from the protesters, and certainly encourage them to be peaceful. But I think the bigger challenge, the bigger message is for people that look like me is to ask ourselves why. Why are they feeling this pain? And to listen. And when we listen, we learn. And then if our hearts are in the right place, then we can sit down, as Delegate McQuinn said, we can sit down at the table and in a civil manner move forward and take action to make our society better for our young folks and everybody else that's in the world with us.
Do you think it's possible, though, that some of these people really are coming from out of town and their intentions are not, for the right reason?
I think it's fair to say that there are individuals out there who are exploiting the situation that we're in, and for that, we regret that and ask them to take their energy and their interests elsewhere.
And Governor, I know you talk about listening to the people who are out on the streets, as I'm sure you can hear them there right now, and just looking at social media, I believe some of them would like you to be out there right now listening to them. I know Mayor Stoney was doing that a few hours ago. Would you be willing to go outside at the conclusion of this and speak with them and listen with them?
Well, I would continue to reach out to folks and have a dialogue. I'm not sure right now is the best time for me to be out in the midst of that, but there are a number of reasons for that I won't get into. But I will tell you, I hope that they are able to listen to me, and I'm speaking as to my commitment and our commitment as an administration as we move forward and try to remedy some of the pain that people have been experiencing for 400 years now.
Yeah, obviously this comes as we've been in sort of talking about a pandemic for over 2 months. So with all of these congregated crowds persisting over the last several days, what are your conversations and are you concerned about the impact this could have 2 weeks from now on the pandemic, especially as people of color were already disproportionately impacted by the
Jackie, I am concerned from what I've seen, and obviously people are gathering, and we know that this virus is spread through the air. So I encourage folks as they are out protesting, number one, to do it peacefully, but also to remember that we are in the middle of a pandemic, COVID-19, and so we encourage the social distancing and the wearing of facial protection.
Is there anything that you would advise for people that are leaving these protests? And because as we've said before, the masks can create a false sense of security. Still, people are within 6 feet of each other, obviously. So for people that are participating in these protests, any specific advice for how they should act when they go home?
Well, just to remember to keep themselves safe and also others, family members, and to follow the guidelines that we have been talking about. And as you know, we've ramped up our testing. That's available to many more people, and I would certainly say if someone feels like they have been exposed to COVID-19 or even has symptoms of COVID-19, that to please go out and see their provider and also to be tested.
We are going to move on to our next phase, so Governor, if you have any final.
No, again, just thank you all for listening this afternoon, and thank you for being part of the solution. As we have said, I think collaboratively together, now is the time to take action. And I am committed to leading that effort, and I have a whole lot of people that are willing to help. So let's not forget what we're seeing out there, why we're seeing it, and let's work together. As you've always heard me say, Virginia, the Virginia way. It's time for us to sit down, to listen to each other, and really to make policy that'll make it safer and more inclusive for all Virginians. So thank you all, and I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back, and I want to make an announcement regarding moving into phase 2. So thank you all very much.